Good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, big hand for Konstantin, the story of LinkedIn.
All right, thank you all. I will start with something quick, and then we're going to try something a little different. So let's give this a try. So how did it all start? We actually didn't take any pictures till about 6 or 8 months in, when we had our first 500,000 users. But that's what the team looked like then. Then at 2 million users, that's what the team looked like. 5 million, we added a few more people. Then we're 13 million, this is the team. 20 million. 40 million. 50. And 100. So it's one of the things I really enjoy these pictures, because when you start, you're just so little, and in seeing them, I hope they kind of form an inspiration. And we actually have, in the lobby at LinkedIn, we have a globe that shows you who's joining the network. And if the internet connection here works, it'll actually bring that up. And you can see in real time, these are the people who are signing up for LinkedIn right now. So I actually have a whole bunch of slides. I was going to talk about kind of some of what our strategy was, some of the lessons I learned from LinkedIn, and some general startup advice I have, as well as how to leverage your relationships, because obviously that's a topic I'm very passionate about. But given that I don't really know what you guys are all interested in, what I will do now, I'll walk around and try to get 10 questions from you. And I could just forget the whole presentation, and we'll just talk about your 10 questions. If you don't come up with 10 questions, then you will have to suffer through the presentation. So I do have some pretty pictures in the presentation, so it's not that bad. But I thought, let's give that a try, make it a little different than your typical, go through the PowerPoint. So I'll just walk around, because that way you'll feel a little more pressure to ask a question. I'll write them down on my notepad, and then my talk will be kind of trying to organize them onto a fly into an impromptu presentation. So go ahead. Yeah. Do they have or you can, actually, why don't you walk, logistically it's easiest if you walk to the microphones. So.
Yeah, I just posted this question on LinkedIn, in fact. You have these answers and question stuff. Yes. So I just posted this yesterday. I was just asking, especially to US, people knows more about the US economy. Would an investor in US be more interested to invest in a business where the market is outside US? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the economy in US right now is not so, the outlook is not so well.
Okay,
so
great. I got it. Yeah. Next one.
Hello. Hi. Hello. I have a question. How do you see yourself as an entrepreneur and keeping yourself original and unique? I mean, your product especially. That's all.
Okay, great.
Hi, my question is rather simple. It's about business first or product first?
Okay.
Right.
So what's the more specific question? Like, which is more important, or what's the...
Right. Given the scarcity of resources a startup will have now, which one would come first? Because you see, in local context, we do not have access to a lot of funds, so we need to have revenues to sustain the business and to keep the development of product. But when you don't have a good product, it's hard to have revenue. So it's kind of chicken and egg story. But in your opinion, which would be the one that comes first?
Okay, great.
Right.
Let's go over there.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so
and
what
say your names too.
Hello, my name is Faiz.
Okay.
Okay, what I do, I always give suggestions to companies that I think need to improve. And then sometimes I give it to international companies, and sometimes I give it to local companies. But what happened is, these international companies recently I gave a suggestion to this company named Rafflecopter, if you know it. So what they did, they respond to me personally and they accepted my suggestions, and then they said they wanted to improve. But what happened is when I give suggestions and opinions to local companies, they don't even listen or they don't even reply to my email. So what do you think about this? Do you think that demographical factors affect if I want to start up a company consulting on opinion and suggestion base? So do you think it's better if I do a startup here or I do a startup elsewhere?
So you are thinking of a consulting business to ask questions and then develop clients that way?
Yeah, I always give opinions and suggestions based on emotional and psychological factors.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Next one over there. Say your name.
Hi, my name is Ashraf. I have a question on marketing. Firstly, how did you market LinkedIn when it was first launched? And what would you think is the best way to market a product or a solution right now? Because considering there's millions of products out there.
Okay, great. Yeah, so what might actually happen is, you know, I have 20 slides, and if there's a question for a slide, I may pull up that slide. So only the slides that are asked by you will actually come up. So, yeah.
I read about your LinkedIn story. So do you think if we do it the LinkedIn way, move slowly and use the analytics that you have during the time, and then you decided to charge for some of your features, and then do it and build traction, only then after that, scale up? Is that a better option than I suppose to get an idea, do something, get funding, and then only branch out?
Right. Okay. Give me the two alternatives. So alternative A is to
do it the LinkedIn way, like grow organically and then improve slowly. The other one is just get an idea, propose something, get some funding, angels, do something, and then do the usual way.
Okay.
Startup ventures.
Yeah. Kind of like how much push versus organic growth.
Hi, Konstantin. My name is Dom. And the question is that I know with a company like LinkedIn, you needed to create a big network effect before you could really grow the company. So how do startups, which are small, are able to have effective tactics and strategies to grow their network effect when they're essentially really small? Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is James. I'm the founder of SecureMe. I just want to, could you share with us the moment that you want to quit, and if everyone want to against your idea, how do you actually overcome it? The experience you have. Thank you.
Okay, good question.
Hi, this is Desmond from Malaysia Most Wanted. I want to know how initially.
Is this legal?
Yeah, sorry. I did cut the queue a bit. I want to know initially the LinkedIn, how you initially gain the traction. That means how do you create a user base initially? And then when is the actual tipping point when everything just grow organically out of it?
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Cal from Tandem over here.
Okay.
So three questions actually. One, what was your biggest mistake? What was your main competitor's biggest mistake? And how do you build a successful social network outside of the US, China, Korea, and all the other regular places?
I don't know about the third, but the first two I know. I've got a list of my 8 favorite mistakes.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Nicholas from classbooking.com, Hong Kong Cyberport. My question is a bit philosophical. How do you consider the contrast between market traction, slow uptake on your website or your application versus your intrinsic belief in the value of your application? So do you have to compromise in order to gain traction?
Yes, good question.
Eugene. Hi, my name is Chen Chao. If you can turn back the clock, I'm here.
Yes.
If you can turn back the clock, how will you build LinkedIn? Would the business model be different? Would the way you grow it, market it be different? And a short question would be, how do you think of the recent IPO?
Hi, my name is Eugene.
Okay.
All right, I'm from SoftSurf. So basically, got one question I want to ask is like, how do you make people believe in your idea? Because, well, you're trying to reinvent the wheel, but people will say, oh, you guys, you are crazy, you're going to be the next Facebook or next Twitter, but how do you guys make them believe in your ideas?
Okay. Okay, we'll yeah, just the people who are there, no more new people at the microphones. Otherwise, we'll be finished.
Hi, my name is Ismail. LinkedIn has the biggest name in this area. Do you still think about competition, and do you have any competitors? I mean, do you still think about this kind of thing, or you just go ahead with your own business?
Okay, all right, got it.
Hi, my name's Dennis. It's a question about how much did you use network theory when you were developing LinkedIn, and how it was growing?
Okay, good question.
Hi, my name is Liang from Team 010. My question is, nowadays a lot of new sites coming out are actually also integrating with the social networking. So do you think that this is going to be the continuous trend in the next like 5-10 years?
Yes. Okay, next one. I'll talk more about it.
Good afternoon, my name is Anne. I just want to ask you, how do you start a business in information products? Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I just want to know, from free to paid, what are the challenges you face, and whether are there dropouts, and how do you go over to overcome it?
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Jama, and can I meet you after this for 5 minutes, some ideas?
Sure, I do have some one-on-one scheduled, but after we're done with the media obligations, if there's time before the one-on-ones, we can do
Okay,
that.
thank you.
So.
Hi, I'm Justin again from Enzo Global. My question is, in the Malaysian context, how do you prevent your ideas from getting hijacked, taken over by somebody? Because the problem here is most people don't want to see contracts until after they've seen your idea and heard you do the whole presentation and tell them everything about it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi there, my name is Huiling from MyTaxi. Just wanted to ask you if Facebook keeps you awake at night, and if yes, what are you doing about it? And if no, why not?
Okay.
Hi, I'm Johnson. I just want to know why LinkedIn isn't easier to use for the masses.
Okay, great. All right, so I think we got enough. We may go into some slides here and there. But let's start with talking about how we get going. It's a question I hear a lot. I do a lot of mentoring at the Stanford Engineering School where I was a student, and that's probably the most common question I get is, how do you get it started? And actually, I think that's a very important question. In the very small circle, it's very easy, right? You know your friends, and you just make them use your product. And if they don't, you just talk to them until they do. But then there's sort of that next layer, and how do you get there? And I think, depending on what your business is, sometimes you don't need millions of users. But one mistake I often see people do who do businesses around marketplaces or social networks or in those areas is they visualize what the product utility would be once there are 4 or 5 million users on it. What they don't realize is that value isn't there when you're trying to get user 1001, 1002, 1003. So this is how you need to think about how do you get those. A lot of things, ideas would be great once there are a lot of users on it, but you actually need to get there, and you need to be very cognizant of that. So at LinkedIn, my general theory of consumer startups is that consumer acquisition is the hardest part to solve. And in fact, when I think about ideas, and I'm not really working on anything particularly new, I almost think first about distribution, and then I think about what kind of products fit into that distribution, which is really backward from what everybody would tell you, including notable people in Silicon Valley. They'll tell you it's like you work on your product and you learn until people love it, and then it'll spread because it's a great product. But I think I know too many really great products that people actually love. They might even pay for it, but they fail because nobody even knows they exist. I mean, how many websites are out there? So that's why I would think this is a big challenge. And one of the things we, actually I do have a slide for this. And because you asked that question, it has earned its spot. Actually, I want to show you this slide. LinkedIn Malaysia, just where we are. So we have 600,000 members here, and these are the top industries and top companies. So the strategy was really what we saw with LinkedIn, that it's a winner-take-all market. Once you have several networks that are competing and most of the people are on one network, that's the one that people will gravitate to. So if you're not that one, it's a very difficult place to be. So we basically rushed the product to market, just taking any shortcut we could. And that's not always necessary, but when you have a business with network effects, which can be very usually the most profitable businesses in the long term are those with network effects, which, by the way, is very different from scale or from viral growth. A lot of times, people sometimes mix those concepts up, because you can have scale. You can have, a company that makes T-shirts that lots of people have, but that's not a network effect. That's just scale. And one of the things you want to ask yourself, are you building a business that has potentially network effects? Because that's usually much stronger. You do get certain benefits from scale, right? If you make lots of T-shirts, you can offer them, you can make them for less money, etc. But the T-shirts don't get better because all of you are wearing the same T-shirt. Versus something like LinkedIn, the more users are on it, the better the product gets. In fact, when you look at how we charged for it, we started fairly low for the job listings. First, we made job listings available for free. Then we raised the price to $49, to $99, to $149, to $199. We keep increasing the prices. And that is because the value goes up more and more every year. So that's a great property of a business to have. And you can have things with network effects that don't grow virally. In fact, I would say there's also a distinction between viral growth and word of mouth. A lot of people sort of jumble those two concepts together. But it's, I think, very important, the distinction. With word of mouth, again, you have, maybe you have a wonderful T-shirt and everybody thinks this is an awesome T-shirt and they go to the store and buy it. That's word of mouth. And some companies succeed with that. In fact, Facebook was, in the early days, not viral. It was word of mouth. They simply put up a server at a university and everybody just started signing up. And a lot of people don't know, but there were a lot of companies like Facebook before. Like at Stanford, we had something called Club Nexus. There are several universities, and the effect was always the same. As soon as you offer something like this, everybody at the university would sign up for it. But viral means you can track which user brought you another user. If you just have something and people just come, this is not something you can really effectively improve because you're just lucky. Or you have good taste or something like that. It just happens. But if you have a viral product, you can know exactly when we get this kind of user, they will invite this many people over this many days. And if I change something about the flow, that's going to improve. In fact, one of the surprises we had in LinkedIn is how many users we got through Google. So this was not in the early days, but once we had a few million profiles, we let Google go to our public profiles. And a lot of people do name searches on Google, and so they find that public LinkedIn profiles rank very highly because Google likes the content that are on LinkedIn profiles. It's reliable, it's useful, it's easy to read, so Google likes showing, if you do a name search on Google, the LinkedIn profiles at or near the top. And so then we get a lot of users that way. So a lot of people would say, well, that's not really viral. I would say it is, because we know from this profile, even though maybe Rebecca didn't do anything, but because lots of people, hear about Rebecca here at the conference and they search for her, we know how many new users she brought to it. And then you can optimize it. You can say, well, what if we display the profile a little bit differently? Maybe we work on Rebecca entering more information from a private LinkedIn profile to a public profile, etc. So don't confuse those things. Word of mouth, very different from viral, very different from scale, very different from network effects. So the way we started LinkedIn, we basically believed that we wanted to build a product Actually, that's another important concept that's unique. There is products that get better when your friends use it. And there are products that get better the bigger the total community is. And both are really good properties, because if the product gets better, the more of your friends use it, there's a natural motivation to share it and distribute the product. But whenever you see an advantage like that, you have to think about the same advantage the next company has as well, right? If they build that product and they start maybe in a different region, that's one of the fears we had at LinkedIn when we started, was we started kind of in Silicon Valley and it spread from there. We were concerned that someone in Chicago would start something just like LinkedIn and would start spreading from there. And by the time LinkedIn got to Chicago, that there would already be an entrenched network. In fact, we had a competitor in Hollywood starting there, because Hollywood is very networked as well. So having a product that's get better with your friends is good for starting, but it doesn't provide a really good barrier later because other people have the same advantage. Other products get better the bigger the community is. For example, TripAdvisor or Dig were products like that. It didn't really matter so much what your friends were on it, but just you would know. You go to a hotel and you'd find reviews on fairly random hotels because there's such a big community. So one of the things that we felt was very strong about the LinkedIn business model, and I would search for businesses like that have both properties. So in the beginning, you focus on the fact that, if you like the product, share it with your friends, because you'll get much more value out of that. Because people don't invite their friends for you. They do it out of their own self-interest. And so we positioned LinkedIn as a tool that just gets better. Now, once we had a few million users, if you look at the press releases, you'll see we didn't call LinkedIn a tool anymore. Because a tool is an easy thing to get started, but other people can provide tools. Tools are just software workflow. We call ourselves a network. Because now that we had a lot of millions of users, that's now something that if we define the space that way, then other new upstarts, they can't really compete. Because they have no users, a few hundred users, a few thousand users. They don't have millions of users. So if you have properties of something that has both, you really want to focus on the product gets better when your friends use it early on, and then you want to shift to the value proposition of this product is good because there are over 100 million people on it, or 5 million, whatever the size is. And in fact, LinkedIn has that utility. A lot of people use LinkedIn to reconnect with colleagues that they've lost touch with, to stay in touch with them. But a lot of them also use it, so it gets better the more of your friends are on it. But a lot of them also use it to have their profile there. They know there is economic opportunities for them, whether someone wants to partner with them, someone maybe wants to hire with them. And so they put it out there, and it's not necessarily they're expecting their friends, but they know there's a large community, there are billions of searches being done on LinkedIn, that your profile might be found. On the same side, we have the flip side of that. We have recruiters, we have hedge fund managers who go to LinkedIn and basically see it as a people search engine. And they use it not because their friends are on it, they don't care. They might have no connections on LinkedIn at all, but because it's such a big group and they can quickly refine it, they do it. So it has both properties of that. So how we got the concrete story of how we started, we did think about these concepts. And then we said, well, if this product is going to work, we'll just invite our friends. There's 5 co-founders, and then there's 6 other team members. We just invited our contacts. And if they didn't accept, we would call them up and say, why didn't you accept? And I learned a lot from that. Because there were people that knew me, and I basically practiced my pitches that way. But it wasn't sort of before we started a hypothetical pitch. It was just concretely, here's the invitation, And I remember VC told me, it's like, yeah, I hate those Plaxo things. I was like, wait, yeah, we're not Plaxo. But obviously something in the invitation made it look like it was Plaxo, so we needed to figure out how do we change that. And then we'd wait a little bit. And if we saw that our friends didn't invite people, we'd call them up again and say, how useful is this product if you just connect it to me? You said last time you got it, but if you're not connected to other people, it won't work. So again, either we would convince them to invite their friends, or they would, or we'd learn something about why they're not doing it. Maybe they're concerns about privacy, etc. But after that, there's nothing else we could do, right? So in those 2 cycles, we had to bake all the learnings into the product, because we can't call their friends, right? So it has to happen there. So what viral growth usually looks like, people often think viral growth means like lots of users. In fact, that's really wrong. In fact, viral growth is so small in the early stages compared to just getting an article on TechCrunch or Mashable, because it's based on how many users are there and them inviting their friends or somehow getting them, whether it's through search, etc. But what you want to do is you want to track carefully that when each new user comes in, how many new ones are they getting? And if it's more than 1, you're doing great. And it may be just you're growing from 100 to 200 in a month. But if you're doubling every month, that pattern will be the same. But you need to make sure you exclude all the people that are members that just found you through a blog article that didn't come in through another member, because those is not going to be repeatable. You're not going to have an article in TechCrunch every day, and even if you do, you'll have very quickly exhausted that audience. So really, that's all we did. We invited our friends. We tried to learn from it. One of the things we learned, actually, I do have a slide. This is one thing I like to show. It can be embarrassing because we said that we want to launch very quickly. So we basically had just 4 features, when we started. One was to have a profile, one to have a search, one is to invite somebody, and maybe it was even 3. And we really felt we needed 5 things. And of the other 2 that we didn't do, 8 years later, we've done 1/2, and 1 we haven't done at all yet, even though we've had 8 years. But we were so sure that it would be really terrible to launch this product because, if there's just a profile and search, invitation, nothing there. But often you learn so much more when you do the startup. And the things that you think are essential end up not being that important later on. So be prepared to be embarrassed. Launch something that you're not very proud of. And because often, again, it depends on the business, right? Sometimes if you provide something for enterprises, that's probably not the right strategy. But I'm talking kind of about something along the lines of LinkedIn, which I know some of you are working on. So there was a question around, there's a good question there around sort of this trade-off. Do you make the product great and then work on, and then it'll sell itself, or really work actively on the distribution? And it can work both ways. If you really create a great product that people love, it can get distribution very rapidly without you really having to do anything. But that's very rare. So if you really believe that, then go for that. Take that approach, because you got to do what you really believe in, otherwise you won't be successful in it. But it is not one approach that, because we all believe our products are great and everybody's going to love them. The reality is it's often not true. So if you focus on, and especially if your product's value comes from the fact that lots of others use it, maybe there's lots of competition, it is so important to get the distribution that working on the distribution first and being a little embarrassed about your product might be the right way to go, and then add value later. I'll give you an example. One thing's, so if someone sent an invitation, you basically track the ratio of the percentage of people who accept the invitation and then the percentage of people who invite other people and how many people do they invite. So that's kind of the thing that you track. And you really have to optimize those things. So one of the things was, instead of our invitations, at least early on, weren't, please join LinkedIn because whatever reason. Because we felt that people don't want to join LinkedIn, right? When you have a couple hundred, a couple thousand users, who wants to join this network? It's not useful for anything. So that's not a good value proposition. So we basically said, okay, here I'm Konstantin and you're James. I'm just calling you James for now. And the invitation says, you know Konstantin, and here's his network. Here are the types of people that he knows in these regions and these industries. You already are a contact of his, but if you connect here through LinkedIn, you'll get much easier access to the people that he knows. So that's a very easy thing to answer, right? He's not considering, am I joining LinkedIn? He's just saying, am I interested in Konstantin's network of contacts? He's like, yeah, I know Konstantin. I know he knows interesting people. That actually would be very interesting. He usually doesn't sit there and flip his Rolodex, over lunch with me, so that's a good thing. So that helps improve the conversion rate much, much more. And then after people said yes, now you have access to Konstantin's contacts, but you just did this with Konstantin. What about your boss, your colleague? Would you like to tap into their networks as well? It's sort of like if you said yes to the first question, you kind of have to be consistent, say yes to the other question as well. So that's kind of one way we thought about the psychology of people to improve how we can spread and get these conversion rates up. You do pay a price. You have to be very conscious. The more you use sort of these techniques, there's usually a flip side. The flip side was that a lot of people knew they joined my network or someone else's network. I didn't really know they joined LinkedIn. They did not make a decision for that. So sometimes we get people, I was the VP marketing, and so sometimes I get reporters and said, how did you get into my database? I never signed up for this thing. And often I had to look up and say like, okay, here's who invited you on that day. And it's like, oh yeah, I didn't know that was LinkedIn. So people would literally be on the network without knowing they were. And so we had to kind of introduce ourselves a year later and say, oh, by the way, here we're LinkedIn, here's what we can do for you. So there's a trade-off there between getting people to join and getting people engaged. But I think in businesses where the network economics are so important, that's a trade-off worth making. There was a question about, do you grow organically or do you try to sort of do it with a boom? And we just felt, what we wanted to build was something that scales to hundreds of millions of members. I mean, we still feel we're kind of in the early stages of it. And if you pay to acquire users, it's a very difficult model. Just do 100 million times $20. That's a very big number that you just don't have. So we just felt we needed to work on the organic user acquisition. Because once that system works, it usually doesn't change over time. The psychology of people stays the same. In fact, in some ways, it gets much more compelling for you to invite your friends to LinkedIn when there's 100 million people than if there's 100. Because the brand is stronger, there's more immediate value for people then. So the hard part is building it, but it gets better. There are some things that make it more difficult, which are, if you invite 10 people in the early days, the chances were that those 10 people were all not on LinkedIn. Now you often find that maybe 5 of them are already on LinkedIn, so you don't get the same kind of yield from invitations that you do get in the early days. Let's see. Investors in the US, so I'm kind of taking a little bit aside. I can't find a good, smooth transition to some of these other questions, but let me see if there's anything. So this, and I kind of talked about this a little bit, is how do you make people believe in your idea? And at the end, you want to boil it down to whatever the consumers see for the first 10 seconds. You've got to get it across, because consumers are very fickle. And if they don't know your service, they're not going to really involve a lot of time. Again, this is different in the business market, where you could get meetings with people and presentations and demos. But consumers make up their minds so quickly. But often you don't know what the best way to pitch it is. So I think just use the opportunity with your friends or people that you know who will give you extra time, and then do it that way. And then refine it and make it until you get it very crisp to a very short thing. But that's what you have to do to cut across, is to refine it, make it really short, and get that value proposition across. But it takes iteration, and sometimes it changes over time. How are we doing on time? How much time do you have? Okay, give me 2-minute warning. So do you focus on the business? So let's talk about the other. There were several questions around monetizing. When do you monetize? How did you think about that? Do you focus on the business or the product? So in our case, we knew the value of LinkedIn wasn't really in the code, in the workflow that we provided to our users. It was really four things. The first thing is the total number of members that we have, the quality of members, right? If you have 100 million people all looking for a job and nobody on the network offering a job, it's not very valuable. So you need to have a certain quality of members in it. That was very important. The third thing is, even if you have quality members and a lot, that's not enough. If they don't have enough information in them that you can find them, they don't really matter to people. So you need them to contribute enough information so that they're findable. And the fourth thing is actually not that they're very active in our use case. What is important for LinkedIn is that they respond if they get a request. Because we're not an advertising-based model where the more page views, the more money we make. We do have a component of that, but it's more of a paid service. And one of the things people really value is, some people value just searching and finding a kind of person they wouldn't be able to find without LinkedIn. But a lot of times, just finding the person isn't enough. How do you get in touch with them so they'll respond to you? And so people need to be responsive. So those are really the four key things that drive the value of the network. So given that we knew that you had to have all these people on the network before it made sense to charge, was that it doesn't really make sense focusing on the business and exactly how we monetize early on, because the value just isn't there till we have a few million members. And in fact, a lot of people assume that when your product is great, then people will share it. Well, that can be true, but for us, it was not true, right? The product isn't very great if you have 200 people. A lot of my early friends said, yeah, these are the people who show up to your housewarming. So, what's so different about it? And I remember a friend of mine who is a lawyer in Las Vegas, and he was looking to hire a paralegal with some patent or trademark experience. So he just made actually, let me try to use this LinkedIn thing. So just plugged in, he was in Las Vegas, make a search in the Las Vegas area, looking for someone paralegal and trademark. Not very complicated search. How many results did he get? 2. Not very impressed. So sometimes it's actually better when your users don't use the product. Because if they have a bad experiences like that, later convincing them that LinkedIn is more valuable when you have 20 or 40 million users, often people just make up their mind. And so we really discouraged people from using the website for the first year or so, because we didn't have a bad experience. We felt it was better they have no experience than a bad experience like that. Because that is really the key value of LinkedIn. And actually one thing I want to tell you as users, I know a lot of users, you do a few things, right? They reconnect with colleagues, they stay in touch, they put up their profile, and they look up, they plug in a name into the search field and look up someone before a meeting. And that's very common. But I don't think any of those 4 things are really the true value of LinkedIn. I think the true value of LinkedIn is thinking about a problem that you have, that you want to solve. Because almost every problem that you can solve involves a person, right? Maybe you need a piece of information. And what gives you competitive advantage in this world is not Googling something and finding that information, because your competitor can do that too. We have a lot of users on Wall Street who use LinkedIn to do research before they invest millions of dollars into something. They don't just read the analyst reports of Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or something like that, because everyone else reads the same. The type of information that gives you competitive advantage is one that's closely held, that isn't available to other people. So looking for the really valuable information is really a people search problem at the heart. And that's really where the value comes from. And so I'd encourage you, think about a problem that you have. What kind of person could help you with that? And so search not for a name of a person, search for a certain type of person. So to wrap things up, on the business side, we basically said, we know we're building something valuable, let's not worry about the monetization, but after we raised our Series B without revenue, we knew it was very, very high time to do it. And we basically just tried it out. We just put some features that we knew would generate a lot of value, and we put what we thought was a pretty high price, and then we thought, if people aren't buying it, then at least we can talk to them about why they're not buying it and figure out, is it just too expensive or is it not the right kind of features? So it was really not terribly sophisticated, but we were generating a lot of value for people, and we never felt that was the biggest problem we had. We always felt the biggest problem is in this demographic to get people to sign up. Because when you think of websites that spread virally, they usually are growing in demographics in their 20s opposed to 30s and 40s. And usually there's something kind of fun about it, like sharing a video. You know, it's very easy to share a video. Sharing something like LinkedIn where there's no immediate benefit is much rarer. And if you're in your 40s, you're much more protective of your business contacts. And what's the first thing we ask you to do? Is to put in your resume. I mean, how much fun is that? And then does anything good happen? No, not for years. So these are the things that make our market much more difficult than some of the social networks. But it's also why we have a very good position now, because we surmounted this most difficult challenge. And I would say that the making money part, because there is so much utility, is actually much more straightforward now that we have that network. So I know I didn't get to all the questions. But if there's time between whatever officially I have to do and my one-on-one mentoring sessions, I'm happy to do that. So thank you very much. I apologize if I didn't catch everyone's thing.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. So much learning, so little time. All right, everyone. Shoo, go away for a bit of coffee. Come back refreshed. We've got some rock and roll after this.